with Jon Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, Evan Nation? Jon Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Line NBA DFS Playbook Show. We have Tuesday. We have 6 games on the main slate. James, my guy, looking sharp. How we doing?
What's going on? Yeah, I mean, I hadn't got a haircut in a while, and coming up my whole life, I was a every 2-week haircut kind of guy.
Okay.
And then you realize that the financials of that is unsustainable, especially with, I mean, dude, you're not finding no $12 haircut these days. If you want any type of like skin fade or anything. So it had been a while, John. So, I went with the beard and haircut option. So I sat there under a warm towel for like 5 minutes, and boy, those were the best 5 minutes of the day. Let me tell you, there's just warm towel on my face, John Wick 3 playing in the background. It was a glorious time. So yeah, thank you, appreciate it. But I mean, interesting slate. It's like we had been, saluting DraftKings of their like pricing all year, and then you get to a slate like this where you look and you're like, wow, Joel Embiid 11K, that seems reasonable, and wow, SGA 10-3, like what? And then like you just go through it and you're like, wow, Embiid at 11K, this is the cheapest he's been since October. And there's not a lot of value, and we've had some, obviously upgrades where there were clear value options in Charlotte, but it is I don't. Why isn't Embiid just 12K moving forward?
Why aren't this is a short slate pricing?
It is short slate pricing, but like it's not a short slate.
6 games
still. I mean,
it's smaller slate.
We had 6 games yesterday. There was no short slate pricing.
Yeah, we had a little bit of it.
I guess a little bit, but nevertheless, it's an interesting slate because there are just a lot of big spreads.
Yeah.
There's one clear-cut, like, elite game on the board, possibly 2 if Golden State can, like, figure out what they're doing.
Right.
Obviously, like, Boston – I saw Boston OKC, not the nationally televised game tonight. I don't know if you saw that. Chicago, Philadelphia is the nationally televised game.
Gotta get Joel Embiid on TV here tonight.
Gotta get Joel Embiid on TV. I understand. The NBA also just named Shea the Western Conference Player of the Week, and they're playing the best team in basketball. So like maybe, before doing that, it's like, hey, we're gonna flex you guys on national TV. But I digress. What do you think of the slate, considering you're the man of the hour breaking down all today's?
Well, there's 12 games being played, and or 12 teams playing tonight on the 6 games. 7 of those 12 are on the front leg of their back-to-back, and 1 of those on the back leg of their back-to-back.
Hell yeah.
So not great. Could be better, especially when we're looking at the fact that there are 3 games with point spreads of 10 or more, which means 6 of those teams could be looking at their schedule tomorrow and be like, you know what, we're up X amount of points, we're down X amount of points, and the starters take a seat. So that is my biggest fear here for tonight. My biggest fear for tonight is going to be that some of these games may get out of hand, and if they do get out of hand, that these starters are not going to be longed for these games as they normally would had they not be playing tomorrow.
Hopefully that's the case, because let me tell you, as a Suns fader last night, John, Frank Vogel keeping the starters out there up 25 late in the 4th after Bradley Beal, who's had 2 injuries this year, was at 34 minutes on the second leg of a back-to-back, still playing. I was like, this could just not happen, and I'd be okay with it. So I agree. Also, LT Cracker Jack, how you doing? Welcome back, sir. I mean, I know where you're coming from. I'm just also hoping that is the case, because again, don't want to run into a almost like backdoor not cash.
This has me laughing inside. Yahweh. It's good, Des. I appreciate that.
Did you see the Ja Morant tweet at Barstool today?
No.
They posted a video of a particular receiver on Washington scoring a touchdown and doing a particular dance.
Sure.
And Ja tweeted about it, and
it was the same dance that Ja got crucified for doing like the last week or whatever it was.
Yes, it was.
Makes sense. So all of you guys are in here. Happy to have you all. Des popping in. Always here. Crack Jack back from his break. Happy New Year to you, good sir. Ed Prince is here and on time. Albert popping in as well. So I love having you guys all there. Prince right away wants to know what the number one play of the slate is. Well, playbook is out for you, good sir. If you haven't already clicked on it, we have a couple of cover image players here today. Paolo Banchero is the cover of today's playbook. Franz Wagner's cover of today's live stream. Joel Embiid is obviously the top price play over in the core plays section so certainly a few guys that we are high on here today for 6 games. Let's just get into the slate though, James. How about that? How's that sound?
Yep.
Point guard position. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's $10,300. Got the matchup against the Boston Celtics, where they are 4-point home underdogs. It's a 239 game total. And on the Better Sports Betting Show that just occurred prior to us, I took the Thunder +4 in that game. So I am going to assume this is a competitive, high-scoring matchup. And pretty much all season long, when that has been the case, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has given us 55 to 60 fantasy points. So matchup be damned. We've talked a lot about this. Sometimes great players are just great. Doesn't really matter who they're playing up against. And if this game is going to be a 4-point game and is going to be a 240 game total, then I have to assume SGA is a big reason for the Thunder hanging around here tonight. So I am more than willing to throw him into some lineups tonight.
Yeah, I mean, like, you look at Shai's performances against, like, the league's best. In Denver, 40 bomb in 33 minutes. In Minnesota, or home versus Minnesota, 23-point win, 34-9-6 in 33 minutes. 34 against the Lakers. Hit a game winner against Denver earlier in the year. 43 against the Kings, who were the 2 seed last year. 38 like multiple times against Golden State. It's like, dude, it's just one of those things where you look at a player and you're like, that guy, it doesn't matter who is on the opposite end of the floor. Nobody can figure out how to stop him going towards the rim, because when they do, they're like, yes, we stopped him. Well, then he's going to step back and he's going to just hit a mid-range jumper in your face. And you're like, oh, I have to guard that. And then he's going to be like, you know what? I can hit a couple threes here and then do that. Then you're like, oh, we just can't guard him. So
or he'll just get to the free throw line on you.
Right. Or just like, I am going to will myself to take 8 to 10 free throws tonight if I'm not shooting 60% from the floor. So yeah, if you want to play Shai, he is about half the ownership of Joel Embiid at last check tonight. You know, that's obviously a debate for itself. I mentioned, I think the Embiid price is absolutely ridiculous for the production that we've gotten from him this year. But if you want to get to Shai at low ownership, anytime you can get a star at around 10% ownership, and I mean a star, like an MVP candidate, then there is like merits to building around that player.
Yeah, I agree with you there 100%. And you know, Des asking, is it SGA greater than Joel Embiid here tonight? I mean, I don't know if it's hard if we can really get to that point here. I will say that there obviously are some like concerns about Joel Embiid here, right? First game back from the injury that he's had. You know, they are also a 10-point home favorite here. So if he's fresh off an injury and they are up big, it's a 10-point spread here. Is he a candidate to be rested maybe more than usual? Now, we've seen him go out and put up 60 fantasy points in 3 quarters. Certainly capable of being done. We've also know that this is a matchup against Andre Drummond that he's had a ton of success against in his prior lives. And now we're seeing the newest iteration of Joel Embiid, the MVP version, going for the back-to-back version of Joel Embiid. So, you know, sure, could very well go out there and give you 60 fantasy points in 3 quarters tonight and just take off the 4th quarter. I will say that there are some better value plays at center tonight than there are at point guard. So if you wanted to spend up at point guard, it probably would make sense roster construction-wise, because we have Jackson Davis, we have Larry Nance, we have Mamu, guys that could be value plays on tonight's slate here at center to help you spend down and spend up for an SGA. So I don't know if it's necessarily greater than, but I would put them on equal footing when it comes to lineup construction tonight. I think both are in pretty good spots if you want to spend all the way up, because I think there's some fairness balance builds tonight that are going to get the job done here as well.
I still have SGA a notch behind Joel. I understand the total is better, the game environment is better, but you mentioned it. This guy's averaging 35 and 13 in games that he's only playing 3 quarters in. That the reason they're playing 3 quarters is because he's averaging 35 and 13.
Right.
Like, it's not because Joel had 25 and 14 or 25 and 10 and they were up. No, he is just destroying people. And I do agree. Like, Jackson Davis is the clear-cut highest owned play of the slate. It's like not even close. The benefit you have with Jackson Davis, where like you always hear me say this, if you play Embiid, Jackson Davis is in the late night hammer. So like having him in your util, you're not losing out that much position flexibility because that's just the natural. Now, like that does keep you maybe off someone else in your util, but I'm okay using him in my util. That's basically what I've done. Like I have a core group of guys tonight. Jackson Davis is in my util because I have Joel Embiid in my
and it'll be interesting to see when we get the latest round of updates here, because obviously just shortly a while ago we got Terry Rozier probable news, because a lot of the field was playing Ish Smith at $4,300. You can't play Ish Smith anymore, right? So that's a big value piece that goes away. So I would imagine that even more people might now be on the value centers because you just took away a 4K play from your spot, and maybe now you're double value centering. Like you're talking JoJo and Dave. Maybe now you're going Nance and Jackson Davis tonight, or Mamu and Jackson Davis. Is it risky? Sure, but was it any more risky than the way Ish Smith has played? I mean, probably not. So I'm very curious when the latest updates come through, what that ends up looking like for building out some lineups. And guys, if you have any more questions, like feel free to throw them in there. Des is saying he's trying to figure out the value between Mamu and Nance. Juan in here saying thank you for this. Dude, Juan, thanks for popping in. If you guys hasn't already hit the like button on today's stream, you'll certainly help us a lot if you would do so. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I don't know what you're waiting for. We do this show every day, 5 o'clock Eastern time, getting you all ready for the NBA DFS slate. And of course, if you are a premium member of Fantasy Alarm, you can go get in our premium Discord. You can direct access to myself, James, and Sean Mitchell each and every day, talking out, giving you guys updates, news, and all that other good stuff to get you guys ready to dominate here this evening. So back to point guard, we got SGA. Tier below. This is where, again, I find myself a little bit struggling to pick the right spot, right? Because John Morant is a big home favorite tonight against San Antonio, $9,700. De'Aaron Fox is a 2-touchdown favorite against the Charlotte Hornets tonight at 9,600. You do have Maxey, obviously, in a game where they're double-digit favorites with Joel Embiid back at 9K. I don't know if I can confidently spend all that money on guards that may play 3 quarters tonight, especially when some of these teams are playing tomorrow.
So the Memphis-San Antonio game is obviously interesting. San Antonio has been dreadful on the road, and I understand that's why the spread is what it is. This is not the 50-win Memphis teams of the last few years, with or without Ja. They just got torched in Sacramento, or home against Sacramento, like blown out at home with a full roster. Like they got everyone back. Kennard, Rose, they got torched by Sacramento. So like I get it. I'm just saying I also think that game could be more competitive, which does lead to big time Ja minutes. That's a really good matchup considering the Spurs pace, considering the
and Ja's in the playbook for that reason. And when I went over again the Better Sports Betting Show, one of the props I gave up was Devin Vassell points plus assists over 23.5 because of what you're saying. I don't think Memphis is like that good, right? Ja's great. They won 4 in a row when he first came back, but they've obviously started to dip it back down a bit. And you do have San Antonio healthier-ish, right? Like Keldon's good to go. Vassell's good to go. Wemby's going to play 24 minutes. We assume it's Popovich, We don't know. They don't play tomorrow. They play Thursday. Maybe Wemby gets 28 minutes tonight because Zach Collins isn't playing. We know, James. We don't know, but we know. We know that's not going to happen. But what if he does? Or what if he gives you the 30-point performance in 24 minutes? That's possible. Again, we've seen Miami do it. So, if San Antonio hangs in this game where it's a 7 points going into the fourth quarter, 6 point, then the starters aren't sitting, right? And it's competitive. As long as it's not a 16-point game going into the fourth quarter, this game could get the full minutes out of John Morant and get the full minutes out of a Devin Vassell, who I really like at $7,200 tonight. It would be like my primary mid-tier guard between him and McCollum here this evening. So, that's kind of where I'm looking at. I think John Morant is someone I would consider playing. I don't find myself getting to Fox because that blowout I just worry a lot, even with Rozier back. Okay. Maxey at 9K, I don't know. I think I'm sitting more Vassell, McCollum, and Ja sort of as the next group for me.
Agreed. Fox, it's a really tough spot for Charlotte. We saw Charlotte was competitive for a half last night in Denver and then just Jokic took one. I wonder if Jokic was like testing things because he took one shot at half and it was a 1-point game. And then he came out aggressive and it was 20. They had like a 23-4 run to start the third quarter. And you're like, oh, okay, right. That's Denver for you.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine the same thing. Like we've seen De'Aaron and Sabonis just blitz teams and suddenly they rattle off 30 points in a row and you're like, oh. So yeah, not really on that in anything more than tournaments, Maxey tournaments. We know the minutes will be pretty secure. I assume Rozier's minutes should be secure, but and it is a good spot. And he can, as you saw in that Phoenix game, legitimately single-handedly keep people in games. Like he had 42 and 8 in that game. So if those were all on twos, Terry Rozier was accounting for 68 or 58 fantasy points, or 58 actual of the team's points. And that's just on twos, right? Yeah. So, he can do it, but Steph, we've talked about it a lot. I did the sleeper article over at fantasyalarm.com. Took a Steph under tonight, John. The points, rebounds, assists. I did points, rebounds, assists.
I did the under 20.5 for RT video. So
mine was 37.5 PRA. He has hit that in 40% of his games this year.
Okay.
Missing 4 straight. So now we get Orlando. It's a good price for Curry in theory because you're used to him being 10K, but we're not. So I agree. It's the tier, the Vassells, the McCollums for me, because even after them, it's kind of a big drop off. And then there's just two clear guys that one I'm interested in, one I'm interested in getting your take on because they're very popular.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with you 100%. As we work our way down, we mentioned Vassell, McCollum, both of them I'm in on. Chris Paul, if he's in the starting lineup, I think is a spot where people are going.
He's going to be. Kerr has said that they're going to, I know he's lied a lot. And
I was going to say, I only say we think because coaches, who knows what they do.
He said they're going to stick with that starting lineup is the quote that Steve Kerr gave, that is going to be the starting lineup. Paul, Steph Curry, Jackson Davis, Kuminga, and Klay Thompson.
Sure.
That is what he has said. So we'll see.
Okay. So outside of him, where are you going?
Interesting note on Chris Paul. I don't know if this matters all that much, but he out-touched. I was looking at touches because I wanted to see when I was doing the Curry prop. He had more touches than Steph, just to prove more and more that Steph is just so much off the ball when Chris Paul's on the floor.
Yeah.
Not saying that's a bad thing, but also that's a bad thing for our fantasy production. So Josh Giddey again, checking in with ownership tonight. It's something that I have a hard time getting to because it's his minutes. I guess his ownership 19%. It just fluctuates too much for me. Yeah. And if he's not guarding Derek White or Drew Holiday tonight, he has no value to this team. If Drew Holiday and Derek White are doing what they want, he's going to get pulled for Cason Wallace or Isaiah Joe or insert somebody that Mark Dagnall wants to use off the bench, right? I know the minutes have been better, but would you get to Giddey.
I think what works for Giddey maybe in this matchup is his size.
Yeah.
Because Boston does have a pretty big backcourt and just wings in general. I don't mind it. We talk a lot about Giddey because he is a high fantasy point per minute producer when he's out there. Yeah, our guy Mark was in chat, and I think it was earlier last week. Asked us about it. I was like, I don't know. Like, he hasn't been getting the 30 minutes, and we kind of pulled the game logs. Like, 40 plus in 3 of the last 4 games. Like, not playing more than 24, 29 minutes. I mean, like, he's capable of that because he's very aggressive. He's a good passer. He gets on the boards, which I think they need tonight. He's got some length, but he's not a great defender. You're right. But, like, I don't know. It's Casey Wallace, got that great of a defender. I mean,
he is. Casey Wallace is a good. That's what he's a.
But who's he covering? The Dort's on Tatum or Brown, and then Wallace is on what? Derek White. Like, is that
or Drew Holiday or Drew Holiday?
So sure. I guess we'll see. Depends on what that team needs, I guess, right? Giddey's a better offensive player, better facilitator here. No minutes limit for Joel Embiid.
And I think this is a perfect segue to Dez's latest comment here, looking like a stretch. That is, I think, a stretch. The comment, that is a stretch. Like, I know what you're saying. But this is a guy who's hit 5x at this price 22 of 25 games this year.
Well, he's not saying stretch as in like hard to hit value. He's saying stretch more so as getting guys in your lineup tonight.
I know.
There's just better value at the center position. I just saw an updated roster sheet. It hasn't kind of poking around. And Ish Smith has been replaced by Duarte. I mean, do you want to play Duarte today? I don't.
No, and Bismack still popular too.
Yeah. So like I don't want to go there. So if you can't find the value, you got to find it at the center position here tonight. I mean, see Kendrick Williams getting a little bit of love. You see what's the other name? I just kind of scrolled through there. There was one more. I mean, Dort's obviously getting a little bit of love here as well. 15% from him. It's, you mentioned Casey Wallace. He's around 10%. Pat Bev is around 10%. It's a small slate where there isn't a lot of obvious value. Ish Smith was that value. And now that he's not there, it's the centers. So maybe being different tonight is a way to go if you want to be contrarian and play Joel Embiid. Or as you mentioned, play Joel Embiid and then play Mamu in your flex and play Chris Paul at point guard. Christian, I don't think drafting Chris Paul is bad. I think you can do Chris Paul tonight. That's fine.
Yeah. Agreed.
Just talking about potential pivots off Chris Paul is a bit more chalky. Someone like Giddey who has the fantasy point per minute upside in a competitive game, in a high scoring game, where if he gets 28 to 30 minutes tonight, then he could be an aggressive play at this price point. What does a potential return from Markelle Fultz do for you just for Orlando overall?
Yeah, so I was looking at this earlier. It's not great for Franz and Paolo. Paolo has better production, but the usage rates everywhere take a big hit. It's obviously not a big sample, but Paolo's played over 100 minutes with Markelle Fultz on the floor this year. 24% usage rate, which is, again, that's fine, but that's down 5% than what it is without Markelle Fultz on the floor. 1.08 fantasy points per minute, that's good. Franz is under a fantasy point per minute. Now it's close 0.96, so you can round up if you want. But 21% usage rate for Franz. That's a big bump, 4.5. So, I mean, it definitely hurts, but
I fully expect Fultz to be pretty limited.
Fully limited for sure.
But definitely something to consider. We did just get a 76ers lineup. Kelly Oubre is in the starting lineup for DeAnthony Melton here tonight. Nick Batum's going to play, but will be on a minutes limit. There's no Robert Covington tonight, so we'll see what that rotation ends up looking like for Batum there. Morris maybe gets some run. They'll never play our guy KJ Martin, but it would be cool to see him on the floor. Maybe that's why Pat Bev is getting a little bit of extra pull here tonight. Just thinking they slide up Oubre to the 3 and then they throw Pat Bev out there. So Christian, we talked about John Morant. I think we're okay with that tonight. Yeah, I think that there's of the double-digit point games, we think that there's a chance for San Antonio to hang around long enough that this game, they get their minutes. So that's why I like Devin Vassell a lot in the mid-tier. It's why we think John Morant would be the number 2 spend. you want to go in that direction. We didn't spend a lot of time on CJ McCollum. No, we don't need to like talk extensively about him, but I do think like if you wanted to go McCollum or wanted to go Drew Holiday, Dinwiddie played a lot of minutes the other day. Like I think you could probably find those guys in lineups because it is a smaller slate. There is a chance that a lot of these starters do get limited in these blowout matchups. So, 32 fantasy point game from Dinwiddie might be okay tonight. So just kind of throwing that out there. Do you have any interest in Malik Monk, Podziemski, Smart, anybody else in this like 6K, low 6K range? Yeah, feel the same way. I think Pod's okay as a dart throw off the bench because we've seen him in that role. Monk sort of the same thing, comes off the bench, could score a little bit, but didn't really have much interest there, and the value's all gone now with Rozier set to play. You mentioned Alvarado. Are you still kind of there if Murphy's out? No?
If Murphy's out, it's like a large field tournament option.
Sure. Christian, you popping in those Battle Royal drafts? Is that what we're doing here today? I don't mind grabbing him in some late rounds in the Battle Royal drafts over on Underdog. Good round value that you're kind of getting on him, and I think it was like 5th round or something like that. So, shooting guard here, we got obviously Steph's there. Jaylen Brown's at $8,600. Someone took Jaylen Brown in the first round of one of my Underdog drafts today. Felt a little high. I don't know if he was building the queue and just like timed out or what happened there or just misclicked, but Brown was there. You got Desmond Bain. Brandon Ingram is one of my favorite plays here today. In the playbook, $8,100, coming off some strong performances. I'm in on this game because it's one of the few that are expected to be competitive.
Yeah, and Brooklyn's defense has kind of been pretty porous.
Yeah.
In December, they were bottom 10 in the league. They obviously have had a lot of issues with lineups, and they've changed their lineups and still can't defend even with Dorian Finney-Smith starting. So Brandon Ingram, really good eligibility, really high upside. He has 43 fantasy points or more in 3 straight games, including 24 actual or more. The shot attempts have been great. He's figuring out his footing with Zion and with CJM. So yeah, I'm all about Ingram in the mid tier tonight.
Faisal popping in chat, man. I am not on Kobe White tonight. Again, road double-digit dogs. I don't really love that spot for him. Obviously, if you think he fits your builds, or you want to be super contrarian today, you can definitely go there. He is on Marcus Smart. I don't mind Marcus Smart. I wish he was a little cheaper, than he is. But obviously, I think the minutes could be that if that game is competitive. I've been coming more and more around on Derek White as I've looked through the day here today. And it has a little bit to do with sort of the way he's performed and what we've perceived to be like tougher competitive matchups. He has kind of come through in those games and come through with some big time performances when we're looking at Jason Tatum or we're looking at Jaylen Brown or Chris Porzingis as sort of those primary guys, and you're scrolling through these box scores and some key games that they've been in against, what could be playoff matchups or other top teams in the conferences. And Derek White's just sort of popping up with like 40 fantasy points here. Now, this is the most expensive he's been all year. So you have to at least kind of factor that point in. But, for me, and I know this has been a hot take before, when it comes to like deciding between like Jaylen Brown or Derek White, like I'm going to go the Derek White route here today. And in a game where, again, 239.5 game total now, a 4-point spread, 6-game slate, you get 40 plus fantasy points tonight out of Derek White here. I think that could be in a winning lineup.
Yeah, my opinion really hasn't changed on the Celtics in general. Like, there's always a chance that 1 to 2 of them have monster games, and you got to guess the night. And Derek White is going to be a lot of defense on SGA, a lot of steal opportunity. He's always spacing the floor for them. He's been an elite 3-point shooter this year. So if you end up on Derek White, you have a 20% chance of picking the right Boston Celtics starter, because that's seemingly what happens every slate. Like, oh, Porzingis went for 50 tonight. Oh, Brown went for 50 the next night. Oh, Tatum went for 60 this night. Oh, Derek White hit 7 threes tonight. Oh, Drew Holiday has a triple-double.
The entire Celtics team, except for Tatum's 5% or less. So,
yeah.
Which again, we talk a lot about this, where we felt this way. Was it Milwaukee yesterday, or was it the Pacers the day yesterday, where we looked at these teams in the high game competitive game totals? You're like, nobody's playing them. Kudos to you. You were like, dude, Ben Mathurin, he's my guy tonight. Like, we're rocking Ben Mathurin. Went out there, had a huge night, and people were on him, but you pick and choose the right matchups for certain guys. You get a little different. If nobody's playing the Celtics tonight in a game that's supposed to be competitive, I'm in there. And I know what you're saying, like pick and choose like the guy that could be. But more often than not, it's been a Derek White game, and then it's been one other player, right?
Yes, it has.
Jason Tatum's actually let us down more from a return standpoint,
correct,
than Derek White has and the rest of the team here. Obviously, again, the price continues to move, but I've found myself gravitating more towards Derek White tonight in lineups in some of the bills that I've had there. So liking Ingram, liking Derek White. We've talked Vassell already. Mikal Bridges now shooting guard only over on DraftKings at $7,200. You have Brandon Miller at 67, Cam Thomas 62 as well. What are you looking at here for the shooting guards?
I mean, Bridges is fine because the price. The eligibility obviously hurts his overall value. No literal 0% chance I'd play Brandon Miller even if there's a fire at $6,700. Not once has he hit value here, or got exceeded value. It's been 5x as the max. Cam Thomas coming off the bench. He's been really good off the bench, and he took 18 shots off the bench, but I think we saw what he is asked to do. Coming off the bench, he is asked to shoot the basketball. And I'm not saying that he can't go 14 for 18 and exceed value, but he is not going to get you much peripherals off the bench. So you need the big scoring night. And I see IC3U's comment about Malik Monk, not denying that he's been really good the last two games, but look at what happens. This is a guy who has been injured much of the last couple weeks. He's been dealing with the foot. They kept him out a game or two here and there. He was playing limited minutes because of the foot as well. And if this game gets out of hand, look, a guy who has played in blowouts before played 21 minutes. On a night he was 10 for 13 from the floor. If you think that this game blows out, Malik Monk ain't the guy going to be on the floor, especially after, especially with him dealing with the foot for the last, couple weeks or so.
Right.
So I think that he can get it done. We've seen it in 2 straight games. He's exceeded this price in 2 straight games. It's a really good matchup for him to do so. But you might be reliant upon Malik Monk doing it in 21 minutes, right? It's I know we're going to tell Wemby for doing it in 24 minutes, but I'm just saying Malik Monk isn't Victor Wembanyama.
Wemby also had a 7-block, 4-steal game in 24 minutes.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah, that's the difference.
Right. That is definitely the difference. Clay is a little interesting. Clay's a little interesting, but he can't make shots.
You go Clay over Oubre?
I run into the same issue. We've talked about this. My issue with playing anyone other than Philly is when Embiid and Maxey are healthy, we've just seen times where they had a game, last week or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
They scored 90 points and nobody else scored 8.
Yeah.
In a game that Tobias Harris was in and Melton was in. And I'm not saying I dislike Oubre. I'm also just saying I wouldn't be surprised if you got the Houston or Orlando outcome from Oubre on a night-to-night basis, because Joel just commands so much, and it's just a 2-man game with Embiid being the hub. I like Oubre, and I agree with what Christian said in the chat. I actually probably do lean him over Clay. There's $300 price difference. Obviously, a little better spot too. Orlando's a top 5 defense in the league this year, so I agree. But
nobody's playing Oubre, by the way. He's only 1%.
He was. I played him the other day against the Bulls. He was 1%, and obviously I wasn't very happy with it. It didn't kill me at 26 fantasy points, but I am kind of indifferent about it.
Okay. Caruso down here as well, 5,500, getting decent minutes. You know what he's going to do. He's going to chase Maxey around. Another reason why I kind of looked at Oubre, but like I said, we just sort of saw this matchup. Caruso is going to be on Maxey.
Yep.
Oubre is going to have the easier defensive matchup there. But Pat Bev, as I mentioned, $3,900, 10% rostership right now for Patrick Beverley. So more people kind of peeking in that direction. You have Cody Martin is up to $5,100. I mean, man played 25 minutes. Another game where he didn't hit any shots. Still came through with 22 fantasy points. So, I mean, the defense numbers are great. I like that he's sort of giving you some rebounding, 20 plus fantasy points in 3 or 4. If this is his role without Gordon Hayward, I think there's something to be said about it.
The peripheral stats were great.
Yeah.
And like he's gonna make shots eventually, but I don't know if I'm gonna pay $5,100 for it.
Where are we going? Where are we going next? Is there a value shooting guard? I mean, Luke Kennard at $4,100?
So like, it's funny you said that because like I was just looking at him and Duarte, and like I would rather play Luke Kennard if Duarte played 30 minutes and Luke Kennard played 20 minutes. I'd rather just play Luke Kennard because we know Luke Kennard's just gonna space the floor, and Chris Duarte is gonna be on the floor.
Yeah,
but he does his best Tony Snell impersonation when he's on the floor.
Yes, usually yes. I'm with you there. Again, you need Kennard to hit 5 of 8, but I mean 5 of 8, 4 of 9. Like he's been a pretty good 3-point shooter this year. Now, again, these numbers, with the exception of the most recent game, were without John Morant, without Marcus Smart. So he's probably not going to have a ceiling of minutes here, but I don't mind taking a dart throw there. You mentioned Isaiah Joe. Again, a guy that's going to play 15 to 20 minutes if they need some scoring. Probably not a great spot. People are playing Cason Wallace. Again, he's 15%, 16% rostered tonight just for the lack of value. 20 plus 4 minutes. Not needs to hit a couple of shots, but again, not my favorite spot here. Over at small forward, you got Tatum at $9,800 and Jaylen Brown at $86, as we discussed. You can play Brandon Ingram there, but I think both of you and I are in agreement. We're just kind of plugging Franz Wagner and moving on here.
Yeah, he's a core play of mine tonight. He's one of my 4 guys that I've started every build that I've created today. And like there is something to be said about the Markelle Fultz status, right? Like his numbers clearly take a hit. Markelle Fultz will definitely be on a limit with how long of an extensive history Fultz has been in and out of the lineup for injuries and for other things as well, obviously. But like he's playing all the minutes in competitive games. Golden State is a bottom 10 defense, was a bottom 10 defense, I should say, in the month of December. He is super elite peripherally. And if we're going to continue to get this scoring from Franz Wagner, dude, forget it. I mean, we're getting 20. We've had 24 actual in 6 straight games, 24 actual or more in 6 straight games. Like he's elite everywhere else. It's always been like, can we get consistent scoring? Yeah, that's happening right now in real time. So I think Franz, and for whatever reason, during this 6-game span, which started at the price of $8,000, John, is now $7,500 on DraftKings. So for whatever reason, Franz Wagner during the 6-game span where he can't be stopped offensively has dropped $500, and I'm here for that.
Yeah, no, full on agreement with you here. Anybody else down in this mid tier? Do you like Keldon Johnson tonight at $7,100?
I don't know. I mean, goes off without Wemby, going to come off the bench with Wemby back, and is he going to be? I mean, he's just kind of capped at 32 minutes seemingly off the bench because he loses out those beginning minutes. I don't know.
Okay.
Tournaments.
Yeah, I feel like maybe in a competitive game you might get there because Wemby's limited. So, I don't know when I got to look at the popcorn machine to see like what the rotations look like and where they're going to go. Like, did he lose out extra run in these games because they've been blowout when Wemby wouldn't have played, sort of situation? So
that Portland game the first one that Wemby played, the 12-28 game?
No, Wemby's played 3 straight games of 24 minutes.
Well, Wemby didn't play that second Portland game. Right. He played the first Portland game. And Keldon played 31 minutes. I guess they all lost out on 1 full minute at the end of the game because of a blowout. So he would have played 32 minutes in that game.
I still like the 30 minutes on him though.
So we were getting like 35, 37 when he was starting. That's kind of crappy.
Jalen Williams is there at $6,800. Again, I think a competitive game against Boston. He's going to have to probably have some level of impact there.
Yep.
Patrick Williams is 56. Sohan's in that range at 62. I mean, is there anybody down here for you that values over the other? It's not great. I just kind of put Andrew Wiggins in my lineups at this point. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, if Wiggins is good, he will be. I mean, even in a game where he wasn't good against Miami, he played 26 minutes. So
yeah,
seemingly he's gonna play the range of outcomes like 22 to 29.
Cardinal, they said he's going to be limited, so he's played 24 in 3 straight games and didn't play the last game. Now, they don't play again until Thursday, so they're not on a back-to-back, but the reporting is that they have a plan for him. So the plan has been 24-ish minutes. Now, we've talked a lot about this, and we'll get to power forward here in a moment. In tournaments, if you want to build a lineup with Victor Wembanyama, you certainly can, because we've seen what he can do in 24 minutes. He's actually done it a few times this year, playing less than 30 minutes and going out there and putting up 60 fantasy points. So well within the range of outcomes for him to go out there and just absolutely dominate. But there's definitely an inherited risk knowing that at least for recently, they've sat him and they have limited him. So we got to at least consider that.
Yeah. And until we're kind of told otherwise, I think you just assume he's playing 24 minutes. I don't think you can go ahead and be like, he's going to play 30 minutes tonight.
And there were reports going into the season by the team being like, we're going to limit him. You got to get him ready, used to the NBA schedule and travel and all this stuff. And we were like, oh man, this is really happening. Like Pop was probably the worst, one of the worst teams for him to go to. It would have been great for him to go land with Thibodeau or something like that and just play 40 a night and call it a day. So this is part of the plan, So again, maybe you play him tonight and Pop doesn't tell us anything. He plays 35 minutes and you break the slate. Certainly can happen. I don't think it will, but I can't guarantee that I know what Greg Popovich is going to do, because I haven't known what he's going to do for the last 12 years that I've been doing this. So, we never know. We've been doing this for as long as Duncan was back in the day. So I have no idea how their rotation is going to work.
The Pelicans stuff is obviously a little interesting.
Yeah, Pelicans, if Murphy's in, the minutes Murphy was playing were pretty legit. We can come off the bench and score at a high volume that they have with Herb Jones, should he be out. Can certainly go either way. Again, this is a slate where there's 3 games of over double-digit point spread, and the total on this one keeps changing. It's now New Orleans minus 5.5. So, it opened at 6.5. It's now moving towards the Brooklyn side of this game. So, only a couple of games here are expected to be competitive. Brooklyn, New Orleans is 5.5. Boston, OKC is 4. Orlando, Golden State, it's 3. Everything else, 16.5 is Sacramento, 10.5 is Memphis, 10 is Philadelphia here. Would you play Dorian Finney-Smith tonight?
My only issue would be, and I played him the other night, and this kind of snake bit me. If they need scoring, if they're trailing in this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna put Cam. They probably play Cam Thomas over him. He never played again in the fourth quarter, so I know he's not. We'll talk about power forward in a second, but
yeah, Des, we haven't hit Cam Johnson yet, but we'll talk about him in a moment.
I'm fine on Finney-Smith because he's been good shooting the basketball, but it's not like I'm not at all excited about getting.
No, I agree, and I think again this goes to the conversation about slate sizes and the teams that we're dealing with here today, right? So it's I don't know how many guys on this slate are 40 plus fantasy point guys, right? So if you have to mix in a DFS to get you 22 because it helps you get the right build, then that may be okay. There's only so many plays that can get you there. Now you're also suggesting he could be benched. I think if they put Cam Thomas on the floor because they're trailing, they're going to be trailing by more. So I think they'll be maybe a bit more selective on how that, who's guarding Ingram then if they take, or Zion if they take Finney-Smith off the floor. They're going to.
What about Dort, 46?
Yeah, so, we've had the random Lou Dort blow-up games. 2 of the last 4, he's gone for 30-plus fantasy points here. As you can see, he doesn't have a high shot volume, so he has to hit the handful of shots that he does take. So he's got to shoot 50+% from the floor, He's got to hit a couple of those from 3, but then he does give you defense. He's going to be a little bit of aggressive on the glass. I think he's okay. Again, another guy that is going to play a lot of minutes probably in a competitive game for them. So, to the whole DFS thing, right? Like there's going to be guys on the slate where you don't need 40, but if you get 25 out of, you'll probably be happy with. So, I can go there. Again, he doesn't excite me. I think I'd rather play Wiggins at 49, but if I needed the $300, I'm okay going to Dort because like we can't really play Vince Williams anymore. We have Harrison Barnes. We're not going to play Black with Fultz back. I don't want to play Duarte. I just absolutely don't want to play Duarte. I mean, there's not even like, okay, in case of blowout, X player gets run guys I want to play, right? Like, just where I'm at.
I do think I remember seeing this. Did I ever see Chris Duarte getting blowout run? He did check back in the fourth quarter, up 30 for 4 minutes for what that's, or 3 minutes for what that's worth. Now again, I'm just reporting it.
Yeah.
Even though he started that game and played 26 minutes, he's obviously a candidate to just get benched by Malik Monk and never come back into the game.
Right.
But,
moving on over to power forward, and we'll talk about center in a moment here with the Huron Sharp comment popping in chat from our guy Cardinal here. Tatum's there, Wemby's there. We've talked about it. If you want to play Jason Tatum, go for it. Again, no one's playing Celtics. Gave you 65 fantasy points against Detroit in a competitive game. Granted, they were down a few bodies. They go and blow out San Antonio. He plays 31 minutes. He had 10 of 17 shots. If this is going to be a competitive game, like he has the ceiling. But as I mentioned before, a lot more 40 fantasy point games this year than 50, 60 fantasy point games for Jason Tatum. It's why I said, like, if you look at the Derek White game logs and look at the Jason Tatum game logs, you'd almost rather play Derek White at $2,000 cheaper here. So, you would think Tatum can go up there and have a ceiling game, like knock yourself out. We've talked Wemby enough here. Paolo's the cover of the playbook today. Think it's pretty obvious why. Again, pretty similar numbers to Jason Tatum, like over the last handful of games. Over the last 5 games, he's averaging 47 fantasy points. So, got a matchup against Golden State. We've talked a lot about the Golden State Wings here and sort of the fluidness of their rotations, and they don't really have the defensive identity that they've had in years past. There is no more Draymond Green. Wiggins is obviously taking a step back. They're throwing Kuminga out there. They're throwing Jackson Davis out there. They're flopping in Podzimski and a bunch of different guys. Saric is not a great defender. Banchero should be able to do what he wants when it comes to this front court tonight. So for me, he's very much a core play, an initial build, which is why I've said a few times, like, SGA looks great and Embiid looks great, but there's a fair and balanced build on a 6-game slate tonight might be the better way to go. You get 3 8K plays in your lineup tonight that have 50, 60 fantasy points. It might be enough then shoving in an Embiid who may only get 60 because he plays 3 quarters,
Yeah. I think the problem with playing someone like Tatum would be that Paolo's $1,600 less and is averaging the same amount of fantasy points over the last handful of games. Obviously that's not me slating Tatum, but you and I have had this discussion a lot this year.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to get to a near 10K guy when it's just you don't know on a nightly basis who's the guy in Boston.
Right.
Like, Porzingis could give you 40 actual, and you'd be like, oh, right. Him versus Chat. He wanted to show, like, Chat, what's good, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is his, like, welcome to the NBA moment. So I love Paolo 82. If you are, like, Bridges made shots last night. I said it. It's funny. I said he hasn't been making any shots. He made all his shots last night, and you see the ceiling when he makes all of his shots. I think it obviously helps having Terry Rozier.
And I'm fine going here, even on the back-to-back, because we've seen he played the second leg of back-to-back against Phoenix here. They lost by 20 in that game. He played 37 minutes. Like, these guys do not sit. So I'm okay with going Miles Bridges, win or lose in this spot against Sacramento here.
Yep. So if you want to go Bridges, Porzingis can, again, break a slate. He did it 3 straight games, and then they blow San Antonio out. They're like, all right, KP, like you've had the ankle thing. Take a break after 30 minutes. We don't need you for the rest of the night. So
yeah, and we talked about how quickly he can do it too, right? That
Yep.
Lakers game, we didn't have 50 fantasy points. He was, 30s. The fourth quarter came and he hit like 8 straight shots. Like, oh right, Kristaps Porzingis is here. So, agreed. I think Zinger at 8K is fine. And we've talked a lot of Zion, in the past. Double doubles into the last 3, and then he has like a down game. I don't get why he's not a 20 shot a night guy. Now I like the free throw attempts. I wish he'd hit more free throws. But he goes through these bouts of just like not being aggressive enough, and that's frustrating for me. So I don't know. At $7,800, I don't find myself getting there when Paolo is only $400 more.
And you look at how the Pelicans breakdown is tonight, and Zion is higher owned than Ingram and McCollum by like a good amount. And you're like, well, I get it because, like you said, he should be this, right? But he's not. And I mean, Ingram has the best eligibility of the 3.
Ingram's averaging more fantasy points over the last 5 games. So,
and McCollum is $700 cheaper. And he's had back-to-back good games. So it just makes you think like, would I want to chase the chalk Pelican with Zion, with worse eligibility, with the highest owned of the 3, or would I want to pivot to like Ingram or McCollum, who've been better on a more consistent basis and are lower owned in tournaments? So.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I agree. I feel like if the field is more so getting to Zion, it's a good indication maybe to fade Zion here tonight. Now, it's not a terrible matchup for him, obviously.
No, it's not.
I feel like there's better people around the same price as Zion tonight. So,
agreed.
One of the reasons I'm not going there. A lot of people are getting the Triple J tonight.
I've seen this. I was going to ask you the same. I don't know.
I don't have them in lineup builds. Maybe I have to reconsider this, but it's not a spot that I've targeted.
It's a price and eligibility thing.
Think so?
Yeah, it's a price thing. I mean, there's no other obviously the matchup is good, and I guess if you think about it, we talked about it earlier. They're not that good of a team,
right?
So if it isn't a 10-point, like a legit 10-point spread or double-digit spread, and San Antonio keeps it close, and Jackson stays out of foul trouble, well, then you have 37 minutes of Jaren Jackson, right? And that's 40 fantasy points almost, in the bank, like almost every time he plays 37 minutes. So I get it, but it has not been a priority of mine whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree with you. Again, some more power forwards. We work our way down. Cam Johnson is here. Again, I'm fine going to Cam Johnson if you're just looking for a safe floor play. Like he's going to give you his 25 to 30 fantasy points there. Maybe he knocks down a few more shots and it can kind of get you there. Patrick Williams, Kuminga's 5K, probably getting a little more love, given that spot for him there. But there wasn't a lot of value at the power forward position. It really was at center today. A couple of names, even more names popping into the chat. Again, Cardinal talking about Day'Ron Sharpe. We're going to talk about Larry Nance here as well. If we just move over to the center spot, we don't need to dive too much into what Joel Embiid is. We know what Sabonis is. Are you playing Drummond, though?
He's interesting. He's at least interesting. And I'll say this. He's very low owned. And in the 2 games that he's done well, it has been against centers that particularly hang around the rim. Can Joel Embiid stretch the floor? Yes. Can he dominate from the mid-range? Probably where he's he might be as good from the mid-range as he is close to the basket.
Sure.
But Embiid is going to spend a lot of his time mid-range, and yes, it's a lot of picks at the top where they're running the offense through Embiid. They cannot play Terry Taylor significant minutes tonight. If that happens, the Bulls are in deep shit because he's 6'5".
Do you worry about fouls? That's where I am with Drummond.
Yeah,
I'm worried about the fouls.
100%. No, the fouls are a major part of this, but I'm just saying, in a scenario where he doesn't get in foul trouble and is playing 30 minutes, look what you get. It's just,
Christian talking about the underdog battle royals. Yeah, Drummond was going like a first round pick today, and I was like, I don't think I'm going Drummond.
It's the upside.
Yeah.
It's just the upside. He has 67 and 56 in 2 of his last 3 games.
Yeah.
He needs to stay out of foul trouble. He needs to stay on the floor. I just don't think they have the luxury of not having him on the floor to match all of Embiid's minutes unless he's in foul trouble. Because again, like they legitimately, their backup center is 6'5".
Yeah. My worry is that because Embiid's missed so much time that they're going to immediately try to get him going. So which means it's just like he already has a crazy high usage rate, right? But it's going to be like possession after possession after possession after possession after possession, all Joel Embiid, and he could get 3 fouls in the first 8 minutes of this game. I mean, it just is what it is.
This is all I'm saying, and this is, again, when Drummond's in foul trouble, they go to 6'5" Terry Taylor. Why are we not playing Joel Embiid?
Yeah, well, because this game could be over in 3 quarters, and if he gets his 60 in 3 quarters, there's other guys that could do that for $3,000 cheaper. So,
okay,
that's at least where I'm at with it. Again, I'm not saying don't play Joel Embiid. You certainly can. You just have to double stack. You'll just have to throw another center value play in your util here today.
Bismack, right?
Yeah, Bismack. Porzingis. We talked about power forward. I think you can certainly play him down. Speaking of a guy that had 3 straight 50-plus fantasy point games there for cheaper than Joel Embiid. I'm not getting to Chet at all. I don't know. Is that a mistake?
I would say everything in between. Like, let's just be real about the position. Anything in between Embiid.
I like Claxton a lot tonight, actually.
I like Claxton, but is it like he's a really solid basketball player who has a high ceiling?
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of the same argument about like Embiid versus the value tier, where like you're not playing 2 value tiers, or you're not spending up to get a guy who has 80 in his.
Sure. Well, you can get a value. You can not play Embiid and play a mid-tier center, so. But I do like Claxton in the mid-tier of the group. For me, like I'd play him over Valanciunas, play him over Nick Richards. If I had to pick, a guy in that range, that's where I would go.
R.I.P. to Jonas. R.I.P.
Yeah, Jonas, big sad. All right, let's go. We've been slow rolling this conversation enough. Daron Sharp's here at $4,700, barely played. But again, the minutes before that off the bench were great. If you think that there's potential for foul trouble for Claxton because he's dealing with Valanciunas or dealing with Zion, maybe Daron Sharp finds some roles. But as we said, they changed their starting lineup. By changing their starting lineup, they now have a different rotation, and Sharp was not part of that rotation there the other night. So got to consider that, Cardinal.
Yep.
Because $100 cheaper is the most highly rostered player on the slate, and that's Trace Jackson Davis. 26, 29 minutes, gonna play the minutes, goes up against Orlando, who doesn't have a great center position. Wendell Carter, minutes limit and hasn't been the same player this year. Goga, Mo Wagner, whatever that rotation is going to be for them tonight. Jackson Davis is going to be on the floor, and he's been a pretty good starter for them when getting that kind of 25-plus minutes. So the whole field is in here at Jackson Davis at $4,600. I have no problems getting to him. And then we discussed on the show this morning, Larry Nance came back and now has played 25 and 23 minutes back-to-back games, 29 fantasy points in both games. And this feels like, honestly, a matchup where if Brooklyn decides to go smaller, well, Larry Nance matches up perfectly with that. So, definitely in on some Larry Nance tonight and Jackson Davis as like the 2 value centers. Our guy S. Penny in chat asked about Mamu. No Zach Collins tonight. If you want to play Mamu 20 minutes, you know that there's a limited Wemby. Sure, Mamu can get out there for 20 minutes tonight and give you what he gave you here against Boston. So you want to pivot off of Larry Nance and go to Mamu, save a couple $100, you can certainly do that too.
And it might even be more than 20, because if you let's assume Wemby stays on the limit, right?
Right.
And plays 24 minutes. There's still 24 minutes to be had at center. So
yeah,
if
Zach Collins is only playing around like 18 or so minutes tonight, that's why I assumed he'd be in that 20 minutes range. So
yeah, they've played like they've randomly dusted off Dominic Barlow in their most recent games for like double-digit minutes. So there is like a range of outcomes where Mamu plays
22, 24.
Yeah, or 8 because they use Barlow. Like there's but like I do think Mamu's fine. I do think he's pretty far behind the other 2. like
Sure.
Jackson Davis
Yeah.
and Nance. But obviously to be different. I mean, Nance is the clear, like, just pivot, right? Off GPPs, like, because Jackson Davis is 70% rostered and Nance is not 70% rostered.
Right. Yeah, Cardinal, the one thing with the potential foul trouble for Claxton is, again, we've seen Brooklyn go to lineups that have like Royce O'Neal and Dorian Finney-Smith at center. If they go that route, like in matchup with Larry Nance, then they don't have to deal with the big. So that's just the only thing there with Daron Sharp. It's concerning that they changed their starting lineup and he plays 8 minutes. So, you have to at least consider that fact there. Would you play anybody else, Sarah?
I mean, there's always the Kings did change their starting lineup. There was also rumblings that Trey Lyles was going to start potentially for Harrison Barnes.
Mhm.
If that were to be the case, Trey Lyles probably becomes like the highest rostered play of the slate at 4,200.
You won't know.
You won't know. Unfortunately, you won't know.
You won't know. You'll have to have some exposure to these games to pivot around to it.
Well, that won't be. I don't think that will be an issue because Chris Paul and if you looked at Chris Paul and Jackson Davis ownership, that won't be much of a problem.
I mean,
the games where he gets 20 minutes, he smashes.
I mean, they played 27 minutes in the 30-point loss to Boston. So this could be a game where he just gets blow around anyways, if you just want a game theory.
But then they blow it. Like, this is the inconsistencies with the NBA. They just blew Memphis off by 30 in 19 minutes.
Sure.
But
I would I mean, if he gives you 19 fantasy points, you're okay with that, right?
No, for sure. I'm just saying, like, the inconsistencies with NBA rotations when you're predicting blow. Dude, did you see the Hornets last night put Ish Smith back in the game down 25 in the fourth quarter? Nick Smith played 19 minutes. We were like, oh, for sure, Nick Smith is going to get all this blowout run. Not so fast. Ish Smith needed to get more run.
Mm-hmm.
Who's 36 years old, and definitely we need to figure out what Ish Smith is at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you there. All right, let's build a lineup for the folks here. What are we? Are we doing the double center thing? What are we doing here? What do you want to do?
I'm not going to answer that question because you don't want to do what I want to do. So just play Jackson Davis and another center, or Jackson Davis and not another center.
We'll build 2 lineups. We'll go Jackson Davis and Nance. 68.
Flip them around.
All right, fine.
Sorry, gotta do it. We just gotta do it. Chris Paul, probably in their guard spot, or doesn't matter, but Paolo Franzito. Pretty good.
Let's see. Where's our next? What's our next play here? Do you want to just throw Giddy in a lineup? See if we
Travis, aka Chris Duarte's cousin. We talked about Mamu. John liked him.
Yeah, I think Mamu's fine, but Larry Nance is playing more minutes, and he's $100 more expensive, so it's not like it's a huge price difference. Right. If you want to be different, not that a lot of people are playing Larry Nance, but if you want to be a little different, I mean, Mamu's probably less of the rostered group there. Yeah, no worries, man.
6,600.
Yeah, we're off a little bit here. Let's see. I wish we were on FanDuel because Jackson Davis is power forward center eligible. We could just play around.
Gonna play Wiggins at forward?
Yeah. Good call. Good call out on the Wiggins call. Wiggins, that gives us 73 guard, 73 guard with Vassell. Vassell?
Yeah, one of the two. Yep. I like
you have preference?
No.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so we got an example on it for everybody here. First one's Paul, White, Wagner, Boncaro, Nance, Vassell, Wiggins, and Jackson Davis. Gives you a little flexibility there. Stacking that late night hammer game. We got 3 Golden State, 2 Orlando. So they're certainly going to go into that direction there. And now let's go get a JoJo lineup built. JoJo in.
I don't want to. Nope, I don't want to.
JoJo in. We'll go Nance, I guess, for now. We'll see if we can have any money to move up to Jack. Or you rather go Jackson Davis or Nance? What would you prefer?
I mean, I prefer Jackson Davis, but I'm okay playing Nance.
No, that's fine. All right, Embiid, Jackson Davis. Have to go Paul. We probably have to go back to Wiggins just for the value there.
Mm-hmm. Golden State is a home favorite tonight, so like
yeah. I actually the Better Sports Betting Show I gave out Orlando +3 and money line. So
I mean, it's a competitive. It's going to be competitive. It's going to be a good game.
Yeah. Franz probably can't get Banchero.
No, not with Thrawn. No, you'd have to pick. I think you'd have to pick
one of the. I'll take Franz for the cheaper play here. Then Kuminga maybe. Is four Golden State? It's 4 Golden State too much?
Yeah, I would say that is probably pushing it. We can move Wiggins to power forward and play like Lou Dort.
Okay. It's 59. Can we get Derek White in the lineup? 41. How about 41?
It would be Dort.
Ooh.
It'd be or Kennard. Yeah,
Kennard.
Love when a plan comes together, huh, John?
I love when a plan comes together. Chris Paul, Derek White, Lou Dort, Andrew Wiggins, Joel Embiid, Luke Kennard, Franz Wagner, and Trace Jackson Davis. Again, guys, just a couple of example lineups for everybody here tonight. You want to follow us over on Twitter. You see our Twitter handles there at @the_real_grande, and myself is at Impemba777. If you haven't already done so, like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're here every day, 5 o'clock Eastern time, breaking down the main slate. We also do a daily preview show as well, which gets released during the evenings, get you guys ready overnight and into the morning to prepare you for today's slate. If you have subscribed already, you can go join our Discord, premium Discord access, get in the channels there. You get access to myself, Grande, Sean Mitchell, the whole team answering your questions in our premium Discord channel. So check it all out today, and good luck with your lineup building tonight. We'll be back tomorrow. Big Wednesday slate, everybody. We'll talk to you then.